Okay, I think we are live. So, welcome everybody, and this is part number two of my biggest mistakes. Okay, so I've made tons and tons and tons of mistakes in this business, but I just wanted to share some of these big ones with you because um, I would love for you to repeat them. No, so we want obviously people to learn from other people's mistakes, and that's why I wanted to share some of the biggest ones that I've made. And one of the things with being an entrepreneur is that you always kind of want to go after the big fish, right? And ever since I started in the network marketing industry, I always heard about people that went into new countries. They developed a team in this new country and it just blew up, and that's what set them free forever. And in our business, a lot of those stories kind of came from Japan and Korea and Southeast Asia and so on, because that's where the majority of our business is. But um, I always had this goal of one day we're going to open up India, and we still haven't opened up India 13 years later. Right? I heard about this 13 years ago that we were going to open up India, right? So you could be spending all your life focusing on a country that's not open, okay? And I'm going to share with you a few different stories here of what I've gone through over the last 13 years with focusing on countries that were not always open. So the first one that kind of came to mind was very early on in my business. I was using Alibaba to search for nutrition companies because we had this technology. I was able to measure antioxidants, so we still have it today actually. But what really got me going was that this was the differentiator in the industry, right? Like everybody was selling these vitamins and so on, but nobody knew if they were working. And so I was researching on Alibaba at that time. This is before it blew up and became this massive, huge company. Anyway, I found a company there, or a guy who was working in nutrition, and he was based in Switzerland. Okay, and so I started to communicate with this guy and telling him all about our technology and so on, and got him super excited and interested in our business. The only issue was that he was based in Geneva, and we were not open in Switzerland at this point. Okay, and so I was fairly new in the business. I've only been in for maybe a year or so, but I was like, oh, maybe I could be one of the first to get into Switzerland and so on. So I was all excited about it. But anyway, I was just excited that anybody was interested in joining the team, really, at that point. So I started to work with this guy, and I drove down to Switzerland several times. The issue was that for him to get products, he had to send them to an address in France and then bring him across the border. And this guy was like, he was always so nervous to bring these products across the border because obviously he was doing something that wasn't really above board, right? And but I went down there a few different times, and eventually he decided that he wanted to get his own scanner, and this is great news. So he made at that point we had to make these massive orders in order to get the lease on these scanners. Anyway, um, and just to put a name on this guy's name is Jason, just the nicest guy ever. Like, just such a cool guy. We had a lot of fun building the teams there, and selling this dream to people that one day we were going to open up in Switzerland, and this machine was just going to be revolutionary and so on. And back during these times, we were using a technology that took about an hour to calibrate, and half the time it didn't even work. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, and just always kind of hoping that please let this work this time, right? But anyway, the issue with working in a country that's not yet open is that you have maybe like another 100 challenges on top of what you normally do, right? And so eventually, there were just too many challenges, and it was just too difficult to bring the products in and to get people registered and signed up because they had to have a bank account in France and all these different things like that. And so eventually it just kind of fizzled out. And so I spent maybe about a year and a half of my business working with this guy and looking to work with this market that wasn't open. And of course, many trips down there to eventually find out like, hey, this wasn't going to work. And a few years later, Switzerland did actually open up, but this was after we'd stopped working there and so on. So um, my big recommendation is to work in a country where you're open. Okay, so I wanted to bring you guys to my next story here is another country that I worked quite a lot in. Okay, so just so you guys know, is we're never supposed to work in unopened markets, and it is not accepted by the company. And but I still want to share with you some of these bloopers because hopefully you'll learn from that. Because I have so many people that are coming to me going, Dubai, 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 India, 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 Dubai, Dubai, India, right? They're always asking about these two countries and when we're going to open there and so on. And my honest answer is we might never open there. Okay, yes, I've heard that our company's interested in opening up in India for sure. I've never heard them say anything about Dubai, but you know, so my honest answer is we might never open there, okay? Because I've heard India since 2005 or whatever it is, and now we're in 2018 and we're still not open there, okay? Now, another country was we had a girl who was actually working in London with Estonia, and what was interesting is that this girl actually started to have some good success, and she started to move a lot of products in Estonia. And so I eventually actually flew over there, and it was such a fun trip and such an exciting way to like see a new country, to be taken around by locals there. And that's what I love with this as well, is like even though I do not recommend for anybody to do it, I never regret any of it because it was such a learning situation experience, and I also got to see these new countries that I probably never would have gone to, right? So, but anyway, I still today I think have a bunch of Estonian money because I would bring products over and someone would pay me the Estonian money, and I never actually got a change when they changed over to the euro, and I don't think actually I'm not even sure if it's still possible anymore. So I'll just keep that money as a souvenir for those good times. Anyway, one day the girl that we were working with there, she just disappeared out of like she just didn't respond to anything, all of our communication, whatever else. And that's another thing that can happen when you're working with countries that are not open is like, you know, they just kind of go, all right, enough. And they just find it's too challenging. Another interesting story is I had a guy that was actually, I met him in the UK, but he later on moved to Dubai, but he had a lot of contacts in the Middle East. And he had a hospital that was, I think it was a hospital group or something like that, but they were going to buy about 200,000 um, uh, dollars worth of products, $200,000 worth of products. Everything was set up. They had all the meetings, everything. This guy was ready to go. And finally, one day, because he'd sold it into this prospect this hospital group, that he was the official distributor in Saudi Arabia for our products. And eventually, he the guy who was about to buy these products, he called the company headquarters and he's like, yes, I've been dealing with your guy who's responsible for Saudi Arabia. And of course the company goes, we're not open in Saudi Arabia. There is no official distributor there. And that kind of broke everything off. But it was so close to getting that $200,000 order. It was just so close. But anyway, there again, lots and lots of work put into something. You know, a lot of hope. Like I was just like, woohoo! I'm gonna get this order and so on. It's gonna be amazing. And of course, then you're let down, right? You're just kind of setting yourself up for failure. And so, just a huge suggestion for any of you that are looking at these countries that are not yet open, like Dubai and like India and so on. And you know, there might be ways that you can get products there. There might be ways that you can work the business there, but it's really not worth it. Like in the long run, I've just not seen it worth it for me. Another thing that didn't really help out was I worked a lot with Turkey. They were opening up the market there. So they were actually opening up the market. So there we had even better news. And so I started working with a lot of people there and I actually moved there, but I didn't really speak the language. So I don't speak the language, not really speak that. I didn't speak the language at all. And I lived there and it was really tough to go around to all the meetings and translations and so on. I know there's been these amazing stories of people going to Japan. They didn't speak Japanese, but of course they found translators who later on became distributors and became super successful and so on. But my suggestion for you is to focus on open markets, and within that, I would even focus as much as in your local area as possible. Okay, and another situation that kind of, you know, I put in a lot of work and it's ended up in nothing was South Africa. I went there several times to build my business and nothing came out of it. Today I actually have a huge team in South Africa, but that's come through South Africans that I've worked with in where I was living in the UK or whatever else, right? So I know today with social media it's a lot easier to build worldwide, but always think locally. I do see that one of the most successful teams, or several teams actually, that are building within my organization are teams where they're able to get together. They're able to have the face-to-face meetings. They're able to have the socials. They're able to have the fun. There's a part of the UK now where we have an incredible high number of high-level leaders just kind of I would say about half an hour to an hour and a half north of London. In this area, there are just so many incredible leaders, right? And a lot of that has to do with it. They're able to meet each other. They're able to share, become friends as well. That's another huge thing as well. And so I always say, like, build as much as you can locally, build up the social aspect of it. And so my biggest blooper today is obviously building in these unopened markets and just all that time and effort that you spend doing that. And then it just ends up being coming to nothing, right? So go out there and have fun. And remember, focus as much as you can locally, unless you're willing to travel somewhere over and over and over again, like I was with Scotland, which is, definitely been a good return on my investment there, working with amazing Catherine. And if you're willing to do that, then yes, it can become something great. But don't focus on markets that we're not open in. That's not going to be usually beneficial for you in the long run. And you might get a little bit lucky, but I would say, create your luck in your local market instead. Create your luck in your area. Find people around where you are and build within that, because it's going to help you so much more in the long run. All right, everybody. I hope that was helpful. Have an awesome day.